Right. So firstly, thank you everybody for coming. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we're on Menang Budja tonight. The connection that the Noongar people hold with this land, we call the Great Southern, runs generations deep. It's thanks to their knowledge and caretaking of this country that we live in such a biodiverse hotspot. It's a real privilege to be here together tonight. So thanks. Michael, thanks. So good to see you again. You're a bit of a staple of our book club actually. This is the third time.
Yeah, lucky it's only a short drive down from Perth,
Yeah.
Brisbane, so doesn't take long to get it.
Yeah. We're a Michael Trant groupie. It's me harassing him, writing letters, going, "Come on, you and Carly have to come back." So, what's been going on? It's been pretty busy lately.
Yeah, it's been pretty nuts. No Trace launched in middle of May. Yeah, the middle of May, right during the middle of seeding, so that was fun. Between events and getting back on the tractor for the boss and come back down to Perth for more events. We did Margaret River Festival with the launch.
I shared speaking of like the launch day, I shared your TikTok to our group. Did people see that? Michael in the tractor having champers on launch day, but he still had to be.
Yeah,
that was pretty great.
Can't give up the day job. Actually, that TikTok, I've been wondering how to get on conversations ever since I became an author, because you hear authors on it all the time, think that's got to be good sales, like nationwide audience. You listen to these conversations and you want to go and buy their book. Anyway, I put this silly little TikTok up, and Sally Sarah got in touch that day to say, "Hey, do you want to be on World Today?" I said, "Absolutely, awesome. That's awesome." And then, months later, she goes, "Hey, I'm taking over conversations for a week or so. Do you want to? Do I ever?"
That is awesome. And we also shared that around our Paperbark group. That was an awesome interview. What was it like for you to be on Conversations?
It was really interesting because there's it's a bit more involved, a bit more of a vetting process to get on the Conversations than it is a 5-minute interview on the radio, because they want to make sure you can actually hold a conversation for an hour, and you're not going to sit there giving 1 and 2 syllable answers, because that would be horrible. But they do a power of research, an absolute power of research. So I had an email from the producer, phone call with a producer, which went for about half an hour. And I had another hour-long phone call with the same producer so that she could get a feel for the conversations and questions. Then Sally would have heard. Then they emailed more questions. Sally was reading the book just before we started doing the conversations. And so I know someone said they met Richard Fidler at an event or something, and in between the breaks, between his sessions and whatever else, he was sitting there at a table just off on his own in the green room with about 5 or 6 books in front of him. They were his next set of guests for that week or the following week or something. Like, it's just, you have to, because you listen to them. They know the person that they're talking to. They're not just asking stuff to find out. They already know the stuff, so they've done the research. And they're only asking the questions for the benefit of the listener.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so good, because they know what questions to ask. And I mean, 90% of that conversation was as how we spoke. They'd sort of cut and edited a little bit, just where I was going, because that doesn't make good radio. But yeah, most of it was just as we talked, because they were that well prepared.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've also been at the Margaret River Writers Festival. You're on a panel. Actually, you're on a panel with Julie Hanson.
Yeah, they put us on a crime writers panel, which was terrifying, because I didn't realise I'd written crime when I wrote these books. Well, Wild Dogs, I didn't realise it was a crime thriller. And as I was writing No Trace, I didn't realise it was locked room mystery until my publisher said, "Oh, it's really clever the way you're taking a locked room mystery and put it on an outback station." Yeah. I have. And, and funny, I was talking to David Wish-Wilson a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, most writers don't tackle the locked room mystery, so early on in their crime writing piece. What made you do that?" I said, "I didn't know I was doing it. Ignorance is bliss in some of these times." No, the Margaret River is great. It's I was down there the year before as well, so to get invited back was really nice. And yeah, we launched No Trace officially then, and then the lady who interviewed us the first day, she was the one who brought whistles and party hats. She said, "It's a launch party. We're going to have a party." I'm like, "I'm not wearing a stupid hat on stage and blowing a stupid whistle." It was her whistle on that video that got me on the conversation. So I sort of have to thanks Jen. That was actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. That's awesome. And recently, like just last week, went to the fellowship at the State Library. So you shortlisted.
Yeah, I
For the Premiers Award.
a few of my writer mates got in touch with a little group of writers on a little chat group, and we're all close mates. And someone said, "Hey, there's haven't been that many applications for the Writers Fellowship for the Premiers Award, so you all need to apply. You all fit the bill." And the fellowship is sort of basically a grant for a writer to be able to take time off work, travel to research, market, whatever it is, to get their next book out and done and help basically progress their career. So
big wad of money, right? Big injection.
$60,000.
Yeah.
It's no small amount.
Yeah.
And so I applied, and it was a fairly heavily, you needed a budget and a plan. You couldn't just say, "Hey, I'm going to write a book, give us 60 grand." You had to have you had to have a history. You couldn't just, it wasn't really open to new writers. You didn't have to be published, but you just had to show that you've been writing for a while and that you are dedicated. So I had 5 years of trying to get published with about 6 manuscripts in Ridgeview Station and Wild Dogs. So that was a fairly good backlist, plus letters of recommendation and budgets of how you're going to use the money. So I did all the paperwork and sent it off, not expecting too much. And yeah, got shortlisted with 5 others. And it was quite astounding, actually, because you don't normally see commercial fiction in these awards. They're usually quite literary. So it's always literary writers, non-fiction writers, poets, and that different level of writing that to what your normal commercial fiction, crime and romance and stuff. So to make that list was really, really good. And it's sort of a few people said, "Yes, commercial fiction, woo, let's go." Because like I say, that we've got our own awards for crime writing and romance, and it's that don't often see them in Book of the Year awards. So the Premier's Book Awards, there was one for award for the emerging writer, um, Indigenous Writers Award. There was the Book of the Year award, and then fellowship. So yeah, quite an honour to be part of that group, and I didn't really expect to win, and so I didn't win, and the lady who won is Tracy, get her last name because I'm not. Yeah, no, she took it out, so she'll go off and do her project and be awesome.
That's awesome. So what does that mean for you as an author to have been?
I get a shiny little sticker I can put on my book.
Yeah.
Shortlisted for the Premier's Fellowship.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
That'll be awesome, and it'll hopefully open doors that, if the Perth Festival's looking for authors, they'll go through the shortlisting of all the literary awards. Oh, there's Michael Trant, what he's doing. Yeah. So it can't hurt your career. So
yeah,
it's good,
that's awesome.
and just gives you that little bit of vindication that you sort of do know what you're doing and have got something to offer. So keep persevering.
And in between all of this, working hard on the farm.
Yeah, work for farmer up at Three Springs with my partner Kylie. We both work for the same guy. So when we run out of money, we both go up there and jump on tractors and do what else needs doing, and shoot down here for events like this, and then turn around, head back up again, and do it all again. So not quite at the stage where we can give away the day job just yet. And actually, I keep saying, even if I did crack it financially as an author, I'd probably still go up and do seeding and harvest with them because they're good people, and I do quite enjoy it. And it's really good thinking time too. So which is 90% of what that conversations interview was about, was how my brain just ticks over when I'm sitting there in a tractor staring out of a screen.
It's a really interesting office space.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's good. It's perfect thinking time, and I'm sort of getting paid to do it at the same time. So
that's awesome. That's the dream.
It's all going well until I hit a power pole or something. Fingers crossed. It hasn't happened yet. So probably just jinx myself now. Yeah, most of them these days it's GPS controlled, so you sort of set a line and the tractor will follow that line and it throws the line across automatically to the right width for whatever it is you're towing. You put it all in the system and it works it out for you, and you can, very efficient, and it's also makes it a lot easier, because back when you used to steer it by hand, especially if you're doing something like spraying where you got this thing that's 60 foot or 18 metres wide back then, they're now 36 metres, ridiculous. But you're flicking sections on and off, so you're not double spraying, and you're going around trees, and in between you're trying to judge between a gap and all that sort of stuff, and you're doing that all day, and it was very tiring. I found spraying very tiring, young bloke, because you're always concentrating, whereas now it's all auto height, the thing knows where you've sprayed, shuts sections off for you, and you're still concentrating, because it is a big piece of equipment, and you are travelling fairly fast, like 25, 26 k's an hour with 36 metres worth of stuff hanging out behind you. And I don't like it when you hit trees and stuff. They do bend a little bit. So yeah, but it is good. I mean, I don't do much when I'm spraying. I'm generally concentrating, but other stuff, it's pretty much audio books or daydream.
And your you really enjoyed the audiobook of Wild Dogs and No Trace, right? Because the fella that you got to narrate it, quite clever with all the voices.
He's a really good voice actor. Rick Herbert, he's an Australian actor. He's been around since the days of Prisoner, and sort of been in everything in between. He's just one of those, I guess the technical term would be one of those B-list actors that you don't really see him as headlining a big the show, but they're always in the background as a side character or something. They just make a career out of those sort of things. I mean, he was in King Kong for a brief scene. Like
right. Tag him.
I just got sent 3 auditions.
So is it a matter of like these voice actors decide that they want to be a part of
I think, without knowing too much about how, I assume there's basically a tender goes out for a manuscript, Australian crime. Either they're approached or there might just be a list of these manuscripts need recording and then they'll apply for them. I don't know. Because I know they just recorded the one scene recording just with their phones.
Yeah.
And they send that in. And then whether they filter out more and basically bring us a short list of 3. And I got sent three voice actors, cut one out pretty quick because he was like a very over-the-top movie trailer guy, sort of. No. Yeah, pretty much. And he was a bit over the top, and so no, we don't need him. The other guy was he wasn't much of a voice actor. He was just reading a story, but he was very intense, very calm, and very intense, and very cool. And it just sounded. Well, yeah, that's going to suit that book really well. But then we heard Rick, and he's just always liked a good voice actor, and he did. It was a scene with Gabe, and I mean, he's caught the tension. I mean, his panicked voice and everything really well. So yeah, we went with Rick,
nice.
and I just hear him in my head now when I'm writing Gabe. I just hears Gabe now.
And are you writing any Gabe?
Yeah. I was very. He asked me this
deserves a round of applause. Come on.
I'll get that on camera so I can send it to the publisher. Say, look, all these people.
Yeah.
Want another Gabe book? Have pre-ordered the book we haven't got a contract for yet. No, last year I was very cagey about that because he had to survive wild dogs, and initially he didn't. He definitely died. The manuscript. The manuscript. No, the manuscript that I sent Penguin, there was no doubt he died. Like he was dead. And that was the whole point. From the moment I started writing, I knew he was going to die. That was the whole point. Gabe was going to have this redemption arc, and then Bev, the publisher, goes, keep him around. He's a good fellow. Like he's a good character. And I went, yep, because it makes my life much easier for the next book. So I didn't have to come up with a whole new character and what am I going to write about. Second book, let's write what happens after this. And I sort of skipped. There's 2 years gap between the end of Wild Dogs and Start of No Trace because I didn't really feel like going through that whole court inquiries. That's not interesting. Like courtroom drama, when they're well done, they're really well done. But I have no interest in researching how to do that, so I just skipped it. And we just fast forward ahead a couple of years, and now he's hiding out on his mate's cattle station.
Which really suits the character. That's all right. Which really suits the character because I can imagine Gabe would be like that. He'd be like, "Oh God, you don't want to hear about that." He's not telling stories.
It would have been interesting to see Gabe in the courtroom, and
they would have earned their money.
They would have earned their money with him. Can you elaborate on that? Nah. Like it would have been very. I'm just not interested in writing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we did No Trace, and then now I'm out of contract, so I've got to come up with something to get their attention again. I've chucked him in. I'm currently writing the story. I've chucked him in a mine camp as the wildlife protection officer because I've been up at a mine site, Telfer, where dingoes are walking through camp free as, getting into bins and just chasing the guy's smoker, and they've got guys running around with paintball guns trying to scare them away and working out how to keep these things out of the camp and stuff. And I just thought it'd be hilarious if that was Gabe. And it's just a nice turn of like No Trace. He's in his element. He knows what he's doing. Wild Dogs, he's in his element. He knows what he's doing. He's in control, even though he's being chased and not quite sure what's going on. He is still in control. No Trace, he's not real sure what's going on, and he's not going too well after the events of Wild Dogs, but he's still in his element, and he knows where he is, and he knows what he wants. He knows what he has to do to get out of it once he works out what's going on. So this one will be a complete fish out of water. So if you imagine someone like Gabe suddenly thrust into the mine site environment where everything's regulated, procedures, rules, everyone watching you to quickly dob you in so that they get the little bonus for reporting the safety share and all that sort of stuff. And not his call, and he's just there trying to make money because he's in a bit of financial trouble. And as the first thing you do if you run out of money, you go and try and get a job in the mine. So I just thought it'd be hilarious, and there'll be something dodgy going on that he sort of unwittingly gets involved in. And
Eamon
Amin?
Amin?
I'm trying to work out how to work him in, but at the
Mm.
same time, in all reality, it's only been 2 years since the events of Wild Dog, so he's
he's
still in
the
detention.
detention.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean that's basically going to be the driving factor. If this comes off, I mean, in No Trace, we learn that we are assuming that most people have read the book.
Spoilers
So
everywhere.
in No Trace, Gabe sold his block in town to pay for Amin's lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always described Gabe as rough as guts but a heart of gold. And once you're in that circle, he will do
really
anything for you. And like I know people like that. To look at him, bloody hell, what's this bloke and what's wrong with him? But once you crack through that gruff exterior and sit down and have a chat with them over a beer and everything, and you become good friends with them, they'll do anything for you, shirt off the back sort of thing. And that's how I see Gabe. And there's no way he would just let rot in the detention centre. So he sold his block. He's going to do this. Sort of ends off. He's going to do this radio interview.
That's right.
To get the payout to help the thing.
Get the payout to help because it's Heidi's idea. She's kind of motivating that. She's like, you can continue to help. You've got to let people in.
Yeah.
So you can continue.
Yeah. So I've sort of figured if this next manuscript comes off, he's gone up to the mines to keep making the money to pay the bills because lawyers are bloody charged like a wounded bull. So that's sort of the premise I'm sort of focused on, and then we can explore not just the humour of having someone like Gabe in a mine site, but all the things that go on working in a FIFO camp that you sort of half see and half read about, and unless you've been up there, you don't really understand. Because I went up there myself thinking, well, this is going to be a quick and easy job, quick way to make some money.
Yeah.
It's not going to be hard at all. And we were doing 4-on-1 swings on a construction camp. I mean, I don't have kids, but that was hard. You're away from home for 4 weeks, and your wife and family are doing what they're doing, and you come home, you're trying to slot back in to help do things that the old man couldn't do because he's getting on a bit, and you're knackered because you've just spent 28 days washing pots and scrubbing floors and everything. But there's a big pile of tyres in the shed that really need patching, and then you go and do that, and then your wife feels bad because you're working, but you're supposed to be resting, and so all that stuff that just goes with working in the FIFO camp. You don't have to go up and work up there. I think people just get caught in that trap of, I'm in good money, I'm going to mortgage the house, I'm going to get a nice house. All of a sudden, you're locked into that because you don't want to give up the toys or.
That's right. The life.
Yeah. How many Sudoos got sold in the last 20 years off the back of FIFO?
Yeah. Yeah. So something that was really beautiful in No Trace was the revelation Dave has it. So that might be.
Yeah, no, they'll hang around, like the blossoming relationship between Heidi and Gabe, and his new relationship with Kim and Liam and useless Jasper, useless Jasper. Like I want to explore. We had a fella out at we had a guy come out to the station when I was still there, tourist, and he was just blown away by how capable we were at doing stuff that he'd never even he didn't even know how to light a campfire. Yeah. Just because he'd never had to do it. He's already been in Perth. Everything was there. He didn't have to whatever he was doing. As a job, I wouldn't be able to do, like whether it was a banker or accountant or anything like that. But he come out here and he saw us fixing things. Like we were servicing utes, we were changing oil, we were fixing tires, we were lighting fires, we were everything that you have to do out there.
Yeah.
He was like, "You're so useless. Like I wouldn't know how to even if everything stopped today, I wouldn't know how to survive." Like these dystopian movies that you see where the virus comes through or the zombie apocalypse or nuclear war or whatever, and everyone suddenly has to start fending for themselves. He said, I'd be screwed.
Yeah.
I'd be one of the people eaten in the first half hour because, you know what I mean? But whereas when you've grown up out in those places and you've got a few skills, and the first thing you do is you head bush and you find a station where there's fuel and water and things like that. And I don't know, it's just something I've never really thought about because I've always been in that environment where you do have to do things for yourself because either you can't afford to get the mechanic to do it for you or it's just too far away.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be nice for him to have a conversation with Gabe about that during how useless he felt during the rescue sort of thing. Yeah, keep these characters around. I think I'd like to have the temptation was with No Trace was to bring the whole gang back together, Courtney, Darren and Amin and Gabe, but it did not make sense. So they get a brief mention, and then because we like to keep each book as a standalone.
Yeah.
There was a few things re-explained and spoilers for Wild Doggins, but you sort of got to do that. Otherwise, eventually if you've got 4, 5, 6 Gabe Ahern books, you've got someone coming to them for the first time. But you have to have read this one. They're just going to.
Being a bookseller, it really helps. So
Yeah.
thank you. It's great when they are relatively standalone books, and you can kind of say to anyone, you can jump in at any point.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, so people say, especially now that I'm at these events with 2 books to sell, which one should I get? So look, if you want to, ideally you'd start at Wild Dogs. It's all new. We don't know much about Gabe, and then No Trace, sort of go back a bit to it. But if you only want to buy one book and you want the better one, if you like mystery, No Trace. If you like action, well.
Yeah, that's so true. And I found in terms of Gabe as a character, there was just, all of this, just learning about, all of the methodical way with which he does his occupation, the dogging and things. That was so well explained. And you really are pulled into this whole other world. And then in No Trace, I don't know what everyone else thought here, but I found that there was this whole other sensitive side to Gabe that was really explored in No Trace, and it was less about, we still know that he's a really methodical man, he's very particular and very capable, but we saw a hell of a lot of vulnerability. So that was really nice.
Fucking Frank.
Yeah, first F-bomb. Fucking Frank. Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but I really hope my neighbour never reads this book. He's like, "What are you up to?" I'm like, "Oh, just stuff." I'm not going down to Albany for a book that I've just released that maybe you're in it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even bother to change his name. Because it just worked. I put him. This is what I do, right? If I'm basing a character off someone, I use that person's name in the manuscript just so I can keep track of everything. But then the fucking Frank line came up, and it just worked so well. And I was like, Fred, no, Fred doesn't work because actually one of my best mates' partner is Fred, so that I can't use that one. And whatever name starts with F, like Frank, it was just perfect for that character. And yeah, so we drove home the other day, and he was out on his front drive doing something. We come around the corner, and there's Frank, and me and Kylie went, oh no.
Fucking Frank. But speaking of like redemption arcs, wasn't Frank's redemption arc beautiful? And when the helicopter's coming down and who's hanging out with the gun? Fucking Frank. It was fabulous. It was so good.
Because I had him pegged as the bad guy to start with. He was going to be Chase's dad or something like that.
Really?
I just thought it'd be, because the bad guy's always usually a young bloke or something obvious. I just thought having this 70-year-old fella as the guy who was going to do Gabe in, I thought that'd be nice. But then he just saved the day sort of thing, and I thought, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So, and then by then I'd sort of had, because there was that many red herrings in there, it really could have been any one of them up until the end. I had to sort of decide who it was going to be, and as I knew Kim was going to be the daughter, so it sort of counted her out. But she still could have been. She was still a red herring. And I mean, yeah, as I say, right up until the end, it could have been any one of them.
How do you keep track of these red herrings? Because you're not so much a planner, are you?
No.
So does this surprise you as well?
Yeah. I think it was about halfway through I decided who was going to be the antagonist, and
and
the
antagonist.
That's a clue. Oh, I wish. No, I'm pretty sure. I thought God was supposed to have a plan. Like,
Yeah.
There's no plan here. It's all chaos.
Monica, you got a question? Ooh.
Oh no, that's good because I'm always curious as to who picks it. So my publisher hadn't picked it. My agent hadn't picked it. She said it's either Heidi or Anne right up until the end. Yeah.
Yeah, he needed that, didn't he? Yeah.
I mean, after a while, you do sort of know that it's not the person that you think it's going to be. It's the one that's there but not mentioned all that often. Like, yeah. So that was.
Well, who thought it was Heidi? A few people thought it was Heidi. Who thought it was? You're worried it was? Ah. Right. That she had some sort of vendetta or something and set things in motion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, we had two backpackers out in the station, Terry and Tebow, and they were just lovely, lovely blokes. So I sort of merged them into Philippe, and that rescue was based off something that actually happened in Mullawa back in the 50s, and it was more or less exactly like that. Kid fell down a bore. These 5 blokes were digging away. It caved in. One of them died.
Oh,
and I've sort of all I did was just take the absolute bare details of that event, because that event is amazing.
Yes. None.
Yeah. Let's be generous and say 50-50.
Yeah.
No, because it is. I mean, I can't explain your process, but the day I know what it is, I'll be a much better writer, because it was No Trace was written on blind panic, adrenaline, and red wine, I think, because I had a deadline of June last year. I'd never written to a deadline in my life. We had Wild Dogs come out in February, so I think I had about 8. I started writing it at the end of 21. It was the middle of harvest, busiest harvest ever. Plus, we're doing edits for Wild Dogs. I think managed to get about 8,000 words down. And it was just purely those opening scenes of Gabe at the station. I didn't really have any characters sort of set. I just needed that rough setting. And how's Gabe? He's not right in the head. He's a fair bit of stress. So then January came. We'd finish harvest. We usually stay home for a month in January. We'd take a month off work and just on about Perth doing not much. And that's my writing time. And so I'd written about, 30,000 words, and then Wild Dogs released in February, so it was just full on promo and all that. Excuse me, but I just basically got up every morning and it was just blind panic, because I had a deadline and I was not going to miss my first deadline with Penguin. It worked, and that's just how I operate. If I've got a deadline or if there's people waiting for stuff, it'll get done. It will get done. It won't be fun. I'll be stressed out and not very nice to be around.
Well done, Kylie.
Well done, Kylie.
Well done, Kylie.
Yeah. Kylie's very understanding, and especially when I say I'm going to be writing, she comes in. I'm sitting there playing computer games.
Yeah.
I've done 3,000 words. I'm having a break.
It's part of the process.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it was. It just sort of happened, and then by the time I got to the end of the first draft, I knew it was going to happen. I could go back and then make it look like I knew it was going to happen when I started writing. But there were a lot of scenes in No Trace that I ended up throwing out because I didn't need them. They didn't make sense. They didn't go off to where I ended up. They were branching out somewhere else, and then I'd have a suddenly better idea. I'd just start writing that, and I wouldn't worry about fixing anything leading up to that point, because I could always go back and fix it. But then I just kept following this little trail of ideas till I got to the end and worked out who was going to do it. And then I could put in all those little foreshadowing and breadcrumbs that when you read a story the second time, you go, oh, that's really, really clever.
Yeah. Mother will do anything. Mother will do anything for a child.
That all came in later. Yeah. The tattoo on her arm came in later. Yeah, just all these little things that make the reveal make sense.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just like, oh, it's going to kick the ant. That makes sense.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you decided it was?
Pretty good, actually, because I thought, nobody pays any attention to the housekeeping staff.
Yeah, she does say that. Yeah.
You can go, I worked up at Karratha Gas Plant. It's a very restricted site. Okay, it's a big gas plant, perfect place to throw a bomb if that your way inclined. You can walk anywhere as long as you're holding a mop, right? Because no one looks twice at you. Yeah. You're just going in to clean the crib room. You're just going in to clean the control room. You can walk around with a vacuum cleaner.
And they don't want to do it, so
they don't want to do it. You're just there emptying bins.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one, yeah. And you know the layout of the place because you've been over the whole site, whereas you just work in the control room.
And you hear, you hear everything.
Yeah, so you do. You just hear what people... Yeah. Yep. Yep.
With this book, so in Wild Dogs, they actually cover quite a bit of territory, a lot going on in different places. Still a lot of characters and players, but in No Trace, they're all just on this station on the stead. And how was that right?
That was quite easy because when it rains and you're on a pastoral station like that, you are stuck at home.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can't. If it's been a decent amount of rain and you're on that red dirt Sunday country, you don't go anywhere because you do just make a mess of the roads, and then you've got a 6 months worth of grading when it goes out to fix everything.
Okay.
So that's when the maintenance get done. You stay home. I think the second year we had Gabby on was one of the wettest years ever recorded on the place. After about 3 months, I think my father-in-law was sick of putting up curtain rails and just, because they'd only just moved in there. So mother-in-law Helen, she was getting the place homely, and Mike, we need this there, we need that there, and curtains like that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Gabe's sayings come from my former father-in-law,
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of his turn of phrase comes from.
Yes.
He's a combination of about three blokes. So my father-in-law, as I just mentioned, Mike, the saying "twinkle in his eye" was written for Mike. Like, he was just that cheeky. He passed away last year. He was just that cheeky. Always had a grin. Always had a smile on his face. Loved a beer.
My mother's like,
Yeah. And he just had a wonderful turn of phrase. Like, we had a 30th birthday party, and me and my brother had a pig on the spit, and we're doing the thing. We're trying to get the crackle, caught on fire. We're trying to whack it out and get it all under control. And he sticks his head around the corner, went huh, and goes around the guests who were waiting out the front. And I later learned, he said, "Well, I don't know about pig on the spit, but we might all have to go spit on the pig." And like that was just how just straight away witty he was. And then when we bought the station, there was an old stockhand out there, Dash. He'd been in that entire area his whole life. He grew up in that. He was born on a station. He ended up selling his station to the guy who owned Gabby on, and then went working for him. And he just sort of came with the place. And he was the gruff, curt, no time for bullshit side of Gabe, just very smoke hanging out of the mouth, sort of having a smoke as he's riding on the motorbike, getting to the thing. And then the guy, the father that we worked for on the farm, it's a father and son operation. So Tanner, he's sort of cut from the same mould, same thing. Very rough. Like, don't ever take him out for dinner because have people blushing as he just talks as he normally. He doesn't care if he's in the workshop or at a 5-star dinner. Like, the phrases are all the same. And he's got, can't say that, but same thing. Heart of gold will do anything for you once you're in that rough area. And that's a little bit of where the Gabe's loss come from, because Tanner lost his wife to brain tumour ago, and he still talks about her, and it's quite sad when he talks, because they were sort of soulmates, and then you lose your soulmate, and all of a sudden he has 2 boys left to raise on his own, and so it's quite admirable what he's managed to do, and so that's where a bit of that loss, and how do you pick up again after that loss and move on to a new.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. There was a lot of grief in this book, and a lot of characters are dealing with grief in lots of different contexts and different ways. Did you have to search for this? How you going?
Not too much. I just sort of wonder how people react. Like I say about Spanny Nose, what do you do when you've lost a partner? You haven't separated. One of them's died, and then you meet someone else, and you might love this new person. You're quite happy to be with them, but if it wasn't for that little turn of fate, you would never have met him. So how do you? And if given a chance, like, it's impossible. But if the choice was there, like, could you? What would you do? And so it's that it's that moving on, and it'd just be. So thankfully, I haven't gone through that, because that would be annoying, wouldn't it, Kylie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about you. I mean, it might be me. You might have to move on. Oh, yeah, no worries.
Question up the back there, yeah. Oh, yeah. What would you have?
Panicked.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I had about 5 manuscripts in the drawer between Ridgeview Station and Wild Dog. So I had stuff. I'd worked really hard on a FIFO story, but it wasn't. It was about completely unrelated to anyone that I know, but it was about a farmer who went to do FIFO and found it a lot harder than he expected, and all the dramas that he had doing that. So I don't know where that idea came from. It was never. Alan and Unwin didn't want it. A few agents had read it and they said, "Look, it's good, but it's not for us." I showed it to another agent. She said, "Oh, maybe it might need like a romance or a crime aspect to it." So I probably would have taken that manuscript and just thrown in murder or something on site, and somehow turned this manuscript about work and FIFO into a manuscript talking about working FIFO with a crime element, which is essentially what I'm doing now. I've taken that manuscript and I'm using bits from it as I'm writing this new one with Gabe. I'm drawing from this other manuscript, so I've already got the interactions with some of the characters there, and I've added in other ones. But the essential setting of the FIFO and some of the characters you meet there have already been written in this other manuscript. I've just got to sort of shoehorn Gabe into it now and make it feel natural and
make him fit. Yeah.
Oh, you'd throw away a lot.
Sorry, we'll come back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, you do. Like you never delete anything. Yeah, you don't delete anything. You just keep everything in a different folder, like label it crap or whatever, but don't throw it away because you might be able to use it or even just read back through it and you'll recognise how much better your writing has gotten in the last 5 years. And then you might be able to pick a line or it'll spark another idea. So I don't delete anything. So my folder's I've got one folder called writing, and inside that folder is novels, poems, short stories, whatever else, admin. And within the novels, there's just folders of titles, very inventive titles. Originally, Wild Dogs was going to be called The Dogger. And then I was over east at a agent's retreat, and I was talking to Josephine Moon, and she said, "Oh, what are you working on?" I said, "I've got this manuscript. So see if Haley wants interested. It's about dog trapper and stuff." And no, that's right. I said, "Oh, I've called it The Dogger." She went, "What?"
What? Yeah.
I said, "The Dogger." She goes, "Dogger." I went, "It's the guy who hunts wild dogs in the outback and traps them and poisons them and shoots them. It's not about that, but that's what this guy does." She goes, "Oh, good. Because over here, the dogger is the guy you ring up when you want to get rid of old horses."
Oh.
Right, we're not calling it the Dogger.
We're not calling it the Dogger.
It'd be like calling it the glue factory owner
Yeah.
or something. Like no. So it's really good. It was originally Where Wild Dogs Roam, much than like a Wilbur, because I wanted to write something like Wilbur Smith would have written if he was Australian. So When the Lion Feeds, Where Eagle Dares, whatever it is, Where Wild Dogs Roam. And they took one look and said, right, we're going to call it Wild Dogs, same as Scrublands, The Dry,
right,
The Lost
yeah,
Man,
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, okay.
Outback crime, short, snappy. And this one I'm writing at the moment was originally, I'd call it the manuscript fly out day because that's the day everybody looks forward to. It's the day everybody dreads. You fly out of camp, you fly out of home. Either one or the other, fly out day. And, you put that on the Perth airport shelves with the term fly out day with something that looks a little bit like high vis.
Yeah.
It's like hotcakes, sure.
Yeah.
But I was trying to, because I've sent like a couple of little synopsis to my agent only this week to sort of start making noise with Penguin again about whether they're interested or not. No, that doesn't really work. So I came up with Shutdown.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's like shut down, and it shut down. Everything's shut down. Gabe's getting shut down, and that's clever. So we'll see. Could change. Marketing they know more about it than I do. That was originally called Slow Burn because
the Dogger, Slow Burn,
yep,
and Fly Out Day.
Yeah, Ridgeview Station was originally Why'd You Want a Station?
Why would you want a station?
Why'd you wanna? And I'd written it like it was an Aboriginal word because we got asked that all the time. Oh, I bought a station. What do you want a station for? I'll call it Why'd You Want a Station. And then the book is about why you want a station because it's adventurous and fun and nice stuff. And I was like, real word? No. Or do that. You can make up words. Is it why'd you want it? Did you want it? Okay, we better call it something else.
Yeah.
So it came up with Ridgeview. So actually none of my titles are stuck at the moment. So hopefully this one will. If we've got to get picked up first. And then I've also pegged out a very, very, very rough half-page idea for the fourth book, which will hopefully call No Sign, because that was just a nice. That just ties in well with No Sign, No Trace.
No Trace,
Because that whole no sign, no trace that runs through Wild Dogs, that was one of the last things I had to do.
I remember last year we talked about that, and that was so clever and so poignant through the whole book, and you were like, oh, last thing I did.
The last thing I did was the dingo scenes, but that was one of the last things. I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm writing these books. Absolutely.
But I think that was really lovely in No Trace, how there's the points kind of midway through the book where Gabe is like, right, actually, I am going to leave a trace. And I am going to lure them to me. And yeah, that was I like that.
Because that was sort of my plan. Oh, he can lure someone out and they have a big showdown out in the stick sort of thing, and then it just, because I knew I wanted to put this rescue scene in there. I've been trying to wonder how I could write a story about that for ages. I actually approached the family involved. There was some article on about that years ago. I got in touch with the family and got hold of one of the brothers. The guy, I think he might have died recently, but the actual kid who fell down the hole was still. I think father-in-law said, because he knew the family quite well, he said, oh, every time so-and-so got smart, someone said, oh, that's what you get from hanging upside down for so long. Like, typical brother comment to his brother, well, that's what you get, But he said, oh, I'll ask him, but they never got back to me, and I never pushed it. But I've been wanting to do something with that thing. It was just a perfect little, it was a story within a story. So it was, I could have taken that whole thing out, and it really wouldn't have changed too much the actual outcome of No Trace, but it was a nice little filler for a start, because it made the book a bit thicker and got my word count up. So it was fun to write. It was actually one of the enjoyable pieces to write, because I just all I had to do was just imagine what you would do to get a kid out of this situation. Yeah, no, that's why I actually had I had a Twitter message this afternoon driving down, and things, Christ's sakes, I only was going to read for an hour last night, and I got to the bloody borehole. But yeah, I get that a bit actually, which is good. I mean, that's what you want. You got to be able to keep readers engaged, and there's a fine line between making it too many cliffhangers and too hard. Like, you read a Matthew Riley book, which is great fun. That's the whole book. It's just that the whole way through. So that's a bit much for me. As much as I enjoyed his books, I couldn't write something like that because. Okay, yeah.
All day,
Yeah, no, he's really good. He's really good at what he does. Some of his audiobooks are a bit painful, especially when he lists. He has a lot of lists in his book. Like, there was one with there was a name of 40 characters that were getting bumped off one by one or something, and this list must have appeared 50 times in the book. And in the book, it's fine. You just, there's a list, and you just turn the page. But in an audiobook, he reads it out.
Yeah, you got to go through. Yeah.
And there was another one with GPS coordinates. Like, it was a full list of coordinates, and it was just painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, right, skip 30 seconds because it was painful.
Yeah.
So I'm actually getting more and more conscious about how it sounds when you're listening to it now.
Yeah.
And even they mentioned an EPIRB in No Trace when a helicopter goes missing, and Rick says there's no EPRIB.
Yeah.
And I went, see, I need to specify. No one calls it an EPRIB. It's an EPIRB. So I need to get in the habit of specifying how things are pronounced.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation of Hiab Crane is, whether it's Hiab or Hiab. But he said Hiab, and I've always called it a Hiab because that's how it's spelled. So I don't know. So it's just little things like that just sort of takes you out of the moment a bit. So, but he's really good. He rang me up a couple of times, and actually he rang me up to get it because we'd spelt something tons instead of tons. And he said, do you want to say tons or tons? I said, well, I'd say tons, but obviously the editors had changed it, and I didn't realise it sounded different depending on how you spelled it. I've just always called it tons. My head just goes tons, and how it's spelt. I said, oh, do you want to listen in? Okay. I was in the workshop grinding something or whatever, and he Facebook called me. So he put me on mute, sat his phone down in the studio, and then was recording. He was doing the actual recording, and he was recording Philippe's death.
Oh.
And he lost it. He actually broke down, like he was reading the scene just as Gabe's watching everyone's reaction, and I could hear his voice crack. And I'm like, wow, he's really getting into it. Like he's putting everything in here. He's going all out. And he got to the end. He said, oh, bugger you, Michael. Fuck me, you have to do this again. He swears beautifully even when he's not reading my words. Bugger me. You're right there, Rick. He said, no, you got me, you prick. He said, I've already read this. I knew it was happening, but gonna have to do that again. So yeah, it was really good. And he mentioned it again when we were talking to him on the Facebook launch. So that was awesome. It was really nice. He picked a really good scene to do, and I just love the way that he could do Philippe's voice and then he could go and do three older fellas talking together, Rick, Frank, and Cameron, and there's no misunderstanding of who's who. Like, he's got And he said it was hard because I have got three old white blokes talking together.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, bloody hell!" But then he said the way I do it is, well, one's tall, one's short, and one's fat, so they all sound different. And he just sort of imagines how, Cameron's described as a big bloke, so he's going to have a big booming voice, and then Gabe's his usual gruff self that he already had, and then sort of Frank had to be somewhere in between. So I was actually more worried about the amount of women in this book because there was only Courtney and a couple of others in Wild Dogs, but all of a sudden I'd written this manuscript where there's half a dozen women running around, but he still manages to pull it off. It's really clever.
That's awesome. Now I want to know what your experience with explosives.
Not very. If anyone knows anything about explosives, they're probably going off. Well, 20 kilos of ammonium nitrate wouldn't do that, or they might say, "Oh, prospectors can't get." Or claimants, you got to be a proper. Not every Joe Blow can have explosives, but had a good outcome.
Yeah, it would have been fun to write.
Yeah, it worked because I wasn't sure how that showdown was going to go, and then I thought, it'd be really nice if the helicopter becomes the dog that he set the trap for. That's why there was only one spot for helicopter to land. And it just it's not planned in advance. It all just happens as I'm writing it. Like this helicopter's coming over. Where's he going to land? They'd just land and shoot him, wouldn't they? So, well, you'd have to land in a certain spot so they could make the floor of the mine only all cluttered, and then I thought it was ridiculous when I was writing it. I thought this is like a Hollywood Mission Impossible rubbish like this. But I had nothing else, so I just kept writing, and I've learned that that's what I have to do is just keep writing, no matter how.
To write through it.
Just push through it and see where it goes, and it turned out. And actually, they were very nearly going to use that one of the scenes where the four guys get out of the helicopter and start walking towards Gabe holding the gun. They were going to put like four guys on the cover. Walking towards, I imagine walking towards you, so you'd see these four guys walking towards you. That'd be really good. But then they came up with that one, so that's good too. So
I prefer this, I think. What do people think of that? Yeah,
it's good, isn't it? Yeah. No, the graphic designers, they know what they're doing,
and the solitary. Well, I mean, there's two figures on this, but it's. Yeah, no.
The idea of Wild Dogs was it's Gabe and chase after wild dogs, and as well as the people after Gabe. So that's they wanted the two characters face. It was the face off between these two outback knowledgeable hunters. Yeah. My only concern with Wild Dogs cover was that it's like a American pickup on the cover, not a Land Cruiser. But then I said, when we crack the US market, that'll make them happy. So all price to pay. Yeah, it is like I say. I mean, they are they're a unique breed. I mean, I guess once you've been with if you're the type of person that enjoys their own company and is quite happy to be on your own and not really too worried about other people, I guess you start to miss some of the social cues that the rest of us sort of pick up on, which is why at first glance a lot of these people come across as rude and gruff and all that. So it's always interesting when two different worlds meet. So you've got a well-educated, well-spoken person suddenly coming out there for a holiday and bumping into some of these people. It can be quite the culture shock. And so
who for?
Yeah, for both. Yeah, well, for both actually. For both. Yeah, that's right. So you've got to look past a lot of these things as that's just the way they are and the way they've grown up. And they don't really know any better, which is what I wanted to show in Wild Dogs. The initial ignorance that Gabe may have had towards Armin quickly changes because he spent time with him. He chatted to him and had a few. Oh, that's I'd probably do the same thing if I was in your boat, which is what I've found a lot of these people come to that conclusion. But until they're challenged, they just sort of go off what's on the news or the paper or what mum and dad have always said. And I use the example. There's no way 10 years ago I would have believed that my circle of friends would involve three gay people, a young Muslim woman, a retired doctor, a librarian, and just this range of characters and people that are just so far out of my usual social circle that I had 10 years ago. Not by choice. It's just that I'd never met anyone or knowingly met anyone who fell into that categories. I use Holden's book Invisible Boys as a perfect example. I could have known a dozen Matts, the the young gay farm boy. There's no way they would have come out. There's no way I would have come out if I'd fallen into that group. So yeah, it's just until you meet people and chat away and have some perceptions. Yes, yeah, reading and travel. Ticket.
Does anybody have any questions? Yep.
Yes, yeah. Realistic, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. 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 Yeah, it is, and that's the realities of anyone who's ever shot a kangaroo on a farm has generally been through a set of sights about 100 metres away. Like that's quite normal, and that's all. It also adds like it's not America. We don't have bloody AK-47s and AR-15s and everything that everyone can just go and buy. Like you either need to know some fairly nasty people, or you need to be within that industry to have access to these firearms. That's why I like the idea of Gabe having an old M1 from the war that his father had in wild dogs, because it meant that he didn't want to get the cops involved because. And I just like the idea of him shooting an M1. It was just nice, quite like the little ping when the thing ejects.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up from playing computer games. So it's not completely waste of time, but I just thought it'd be good. It's just another good reason as to why he didn't want to get the cops in. But you're right. So for shooters and roo shooters and pig shooters and all these professional colours, it's long range rifles. So you're not going to have a shootout from here to there away. You're going to sit on a ridge and wait for them to come past and snipe them.
Something that surprised me, and this is just my own ignorance, I didn't realise about the tourism side of having a farm. Was that surprising to anyone else? I'm terribly ignorant, but I found that really interesting.
No, you drive up to Exmouth or out to Yalgoo and the Mount Magnet. Pretty much all the stations there have almost like a bed and breakfast station stay. Stock route.
Yeah, so just go and
it's a
stay
big thing. There's a big list of all the stations that have them, and some do it better than others, and some have gone the full 5-star tourism, and others. I know Gavion have pretty much gone. This is the station. This is the shearers' quarters. There's linen. There's bed. We'll cook your meals and stuff, but it's not like it's pleasant and it's nice, but it is not 5-star fine dining. It is whatever we're eating for dinner. That's what you're getting for dinner. Like it, they do it, and people love it because it's real, and it's and it was like we went into it because we needed some money, and we weren't growing merino, so we weren't shearing sheep. We had Damaras and Dorpers and other shedders, and they're gone into cattle now. So there was all this infrastructure for the shearing team. So there was big rooms, a big building full of rooms. There was a mess house. There was a big shower block. It was just a caravan park without the caravan. So it was perfect. And it was, there's enough room. People used to ring up and say, "Have you got room for a caravan?" It's like, yeah, there's about 600,000 acres you can choose from. Depends how far you want to walk to the toilet. Like it's, yeah.
But I guess I knew that people stay on stations. I think the thing that really surprised me was the observational, like that it's almost like these people were able to just go and just mill around. They had free reign and they could observe and they could go and see what was going on. And that was the bit that surprised me so much.
I mean, stations run it differently. The way I can only talk about when I was there because I've been there for a while now, but they still do it. I still follow their Facebook page, but we went to the trouble of like naming all the paddocks. So when you walk in, if you got into the paddock, there'd be a sign on the gate saying this is whatever paddock is, and then got to the windmill, there'd be a sign, so and so windmill, because we had maps. We had maps, but it was quite easy to take the wrong turn and get lost because it's just gravel tracks going off everywhere. If you've ever driven around that country, you can just go exploring. But we always say, look, you're free to go wherever you want. Please don't go into this paddock because that's where the stud rams are, and we don't want spooking them or whatever. There's goats being held in there. Please don't send them. Hence, we'd say, look, we'd give them a mustering two-way if they didn't have a two-way in their vehicle. We'd say, look, please just come and tell us if you're going anywhere. Give you a map, and if you get lost, don't go through a gate. Just stay in the paddock. I mean, these paddocks, some of them were 10,000 acres, but if you hit a fence, just keep driving till you get to the gate and then wait there. And we will eventually come and find you. It might be 5 hours, might be 12 hours, and you might have to stay in your car overnight. But if you keep driving, we'll never bloody find you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's also that rule. Stay with your vehicle. Just wait it out. 9 times out of 10, that'll get you out of trouble. 5 stubby trip.
Yeah.
The Three Springs pub is a 2-can walk to my front door because I got a little block outside of Three Springs. So if I've had a good night, boring summer, yeah, absolutely. But
just the lady at the back here had a question. Yeah.
I think if anyone who's ever been in the hospitality industry will know exactly how other businesses feel about their guests. 90% of them, 95% of them, lovely people. They're always they're grateful to be there. They're willing to listen and learn. And the other 5%
Are the fucking Franks of the world.
just want to make you. No, there was a few. I mean, there was a few things like we found. Like we were pretty naive when we went into it, and like we'd pile up a big heap of firewood for them. You know, there was enough there for a week, so they could have a nice little campfire. Come back the next morning, it's all burnt. Someone decided to have a big bonfire. Helen would go and stock up the toilet with heaps of toilet rolls, so you don't have to go and do it once a week. Come back and they've chucked them all in the caravan and tootled on. Like Mike had found people stealing the wool brands out of the old shearing shed because everything was just left how it was. Like we wanted it authentic. We didn't want to make. I don't know what way they've gone now, but I know when we started, we didn't want signs everywhere saying, please do this, please don't, please wash your dishes. Because, I mean, if you need a sign to say wash your cup after you put it in the sink, well, how old are you? But I'm just thinking of every staff room I've ever been in has that sign.
Yeah.
But, he saw this caravan pulled up at the shearing shed, which was on the main road through the station. Went down for a look and he met a bloke coming out holding a big bunch of the stencils that they used to do the wool. He said, where are you going with them? He said, I just thought I'd grab them. Can't do that. The guy's like, well, what's it to you? Mike's like, I own the fucking place. Like, give them back. So yeah, just that small percentage stick with you in your mind. It's like that one caravan that's pulled over on the blind corner, stopping to see wildflowers and things. The other 99 you passed are fine, but that one on the bloody corner that you had to veer around because you nearly went up his clacker, he sticks with you. I don't know where Gabe's voice comes from. I really don't.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, we had guests turn up in the middle of January, and I think they've got to the point now they've just shut the station to guests in the summer months because I know we had some people book and like Helen had told them, she said, look, you're welcome to come, but there's no air conditioning like where you're going to be staying, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's 46 degrees. Are you? Oh no, we'll be right. We're good. And they got up there and they left the next morning in just a soggy, sweaty mess. And I think they slept in the car with the car running to saying, like, we told you, but people don't listen. So, oh, and distances is the other one too. Yeah, well, someone, that's right. I think guests had turned up with one of those CPAP machines. Like we told them there was no power in the rooms. Like it's on generators, so once the generator stops, there's no power. And like he couldn't sleep without this machine, so they had to move him up into the house. And just told you there was no power. But sometimes the generator goes off at 9. Okay, but it just never clicked in their mind that means there's no power, from 9 until it just there's got to be power.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see everything that makes Gabe suspicious in No Trace, none of it is a stretch because the phones do go down. The satellite internet and satellite TV, when there's a cloud cover, they don't work. So it's not a stretch to that both go out at the same time. Like accidents happen, choppers fall out of the sky, things go missing, like a kid trips and brains himself. Like that's quite possible, and that's what I like about No Trace. It could have gone either way. It could have just been, no, everything's fine. There was no one out to get you. It was just a Murphy fucking with you. That's essentially what Gabe says. Bloody Murphy. And so, that's what I like about it. It's not, doesn't feel contrived to me because I've been through most of those things at some point. Something like that has gone wrong. My father-in-law, he crashed his plane once or twice, and luckily he was fine when I was there. I think he had a bit of a nasty one after I'd left. I think they didn't get him back in the plane after that. But just little thing, quickly go flying and come into land. It's the most dangerous time. Something happened and he ended up upside down once. And it's not a stretch that this would happen.
Yeah. Question here. Oh yeah, the cool room. Yeah.
No, not really, because what else would you do with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, again, accidents happen. So obviously we find out Tyson was handed him in, but I think she said that he did trip in his case, and she sort of jumped on him and made sure he didn't get back up again.
Yeah.
But like, it's not, if you're walking around in the dark out there, it's not hard to trip over. And I know a family whose the mum was playing basketball with kids. She went up for a shot, slipped, fell back, smacked her head on the concrete, and died instantly like that. Like, that was just completely out of the blue. So there's this farmer left with 3 young kids or whatever it was, and so it's like, well, that's not a stretch. That happens all the time. And then Philippe, if you're excavating a trench like that, that's why they shore the walls up. But you're in a hurry because you're trying to save this boy. And I mean, that one wasn't a stretch because that actually happened. Like, that's how it happened. So if you've got this dead body that you've got to hold and there's no one going to be around for a few days, you've got a dirty, great cool room, there he's going. It's sort of push him off to the side, I guess, and cover him up. So when you go in to get your vegetables that night's dinner, you're not too sort of worried. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
I actually really found it satisfying that the villains in the end were pushed into the cool room as well. That was their holding cell. I thought that was great that they had to be in there with the bodies.
I mean, again, that wasn't planned. That's just like, well, what would you do with them? There's not many rooms that you can lock from the outside and keep someone in. But I mean, a cool room you can.
The teeth were chattering and they've like thrown more blankets to them. That was fabulous. Ooh, really sorry.
Yeah. So again, it was just like, if you want to lock someone in, the cool room's perfect because there's usually a spot you can padlock it or whatever. So you're not going to. I mean, there's always a big. Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's always big warnings about how many times you hear about staff getting locked in cool rooms before they all had those, safety doors. And because everything's on pastoral stations, they're usually pretty old. They're all built back in the heyday in the 50s and whatever, back when none of that mattered. So, I mean, I'm fairly sure the cool room at Gabion hasn't got a internal exit button. So yeah, none of this is a stretch to me because I've been out there and I'm like, that would work.
Been hungry when I was reading this because everything that Anne was cooking and they're having the big, everyone's going to the farmstead and having a big feast.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It's good. Like, food's such a big thing out there, and the kitchens and outdoor dining are always the big communal space where everyone just meets and greets, whether it's workers and family or tourists and everything. So you have this massive big kitchen because, again, these were all built back in the day when they were small towns. There was 20 or 30 staff running around. So yeah, you can have these big banquets and feasts,
big
and
communal things, and it was really beautiful to see Gabe thrust into that.
Yep.
And he actually really loved it.
And
yeah, I don't know. What do people think about that? Seeing Gabe forced with all of these people, and he's, the beauty in the book is really kind of bloody rah 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 about everyone, but he just, that's his family. That he really, I thought it was quite beautiful.
Yeah, I quite liked him trying to get out of it to start with. Didn't want to talk to all these tourists, and I quite liked his little conversation with Felicia about whatever, and she makes a passing remark about "call me Gabriel" from. I like the fact. I just thought I'd throw it in that he actually knew what she was getting at. He's not uneducated.
Don't assume. Yeah.
Don't assume. I like that little. I was quite proud of that one, and it just worked out well that Cameron was up there, so he was a big white whale, and like like I say, none of these are planned; they just happen as I'm writing them. So, actually, no. Bryce Courtney would probably be the biggest Aussie author. I'm just trying to think who I read. That sort of, yes, Bryce Courtney would probably be the one. Power of One, and then the Potato Factory and Tomahawk, and I think Jack. That was amazing. That book. That was absolutely amazing. I think I'd read that after I'd seen the movie. I was like, oh wow, this is so much better than the movie. No wonder Bryce didn't like the movie because there was actually nothing like it towards the end. But Yeah, because when I was always a heavy reader, and I think when I got to high school, there was suddenly this huge big library of stuff that I'd never seen before. So I found all the Stephen Kings, and I'd had a fairly nasty skiing accident when I was 16. I managed to kick a boat propeller, which I do not recommend, and so I was laid up for a while with badly cut leg.
Kicked a boat propeller.
We were water skiing,
Oh.
and I think the lever was a bit dicky, so the driver thought the boat was in neutral, was actually idling over in reverse. So when I swum up to the back of the boat to climb up the ladder, it sucked my leg in and went whack. I said, more or less. And so anyway, I was laid up with that, and Dad said, I think you're old enough now here, you can read these Wilbur Smiths. There's a bit of violence and sex. And I went, so yeah, sounds like my cup of tea. And yes, I got through all that. He had a big line of them, I think, within 2 weeks. I'd burned through his whole collection of Wilbur Smith books. And yeah, so those sort of authors. And it worked against me a little bit because they wrote their books in a time where they didn't have all the distractions you have now. So they were very, very descriptive books. Like we all know how long Bryce Courtney will spend describing a cupboard in the corner of the room. It's a beautiful cupboard, and he left in no doubt as to what it looks like. But ain't no one got time for that these days. You know what I mean? You've got to get there's cupboard, and then you move on to the next thing, because otherwise people they glaze over and they pick up their phone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's I've read that too. The reason you don't have to be so descriptive now because everyone knows what, for example, Mount Fuji in Japan looks like, because we've probably all seen it. And if we haven't seen it, we can imagine it, a big snowy capped mountain. But if you're 100 years ago, unless you've seen the snowy mountains or somewhere like that, you wouldn't know. So you have to describe it. So that's the way writing's changed. You don't need to describe everything because most of us watch telly and seen movies, so we've got a fair idea about. Like if I said a Ferrari, I don't need to describe what the car looks like. Maybe a red Ferrari, but I don't really need to go into broad detail because we've all got a picture in our mind of what a Ferrari would look like, or we can imagine a sports car that would do. You know, that's all we're ever going to do is imagine what one. We're never going to touch one, are we? We can hear it, So that's why I like describing the landscape in these books, because not everyone has seen that landscape. So because I have, so I can sort of just remember things. I don't have to think about them or research them. I just remember what the night sky looked like on a clear night when there was no moon. It's just this smear of stars. There's that many. It's not really individual stars. It's just this smear of red and pink and purple and just white. It's just beautiful. Well, that's all right.
I liked how in your acknowledgement the editor said that you write what you know, but you forget that most people don't know the things that you know. You know, working on the land.
I think my exact words, but other people may not have a fucking clue. No, it is. It's really good, and I've found in all three of these books that all of my editors are gone. What the hell's that? What's that? Like to the point where Ridgeview Station, it's a sheep station. They're doing the sheep work, and she said, "What's a weather?" I went, oh boy, we're gonna have to dumb it right down, because you can either spend time explaining it, or you can just say the sheep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not an essay. It's not an encyclopedia. If they want to know more about it, they can look it up. But to keep the story moving, you do have to. If it's not clear, you do have to move along, make it quick, make it clearer and just simpler, because otherwise you get bogged down in detail, and then you end up writing like Bryce Courtney and stuff like that, which is still. That's it too. But I don't remember the last time I saw an appendix in a book actually. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I'd put that in because it was a nice introduction to Felicia and her asking questions all the bloody time, and Gabe being quite happy to make her uncomfortable by explaining exactly what he does for a living. But at the same time, it explains to the reader what he does and why he does it, because you need to have that reason as to why you might be shooting these feral dogs and dingoes, because 90% of them aren't actual. Most of them are still dingoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time when I was in the station trying to get rid of these bloody dogs, they were a pain in the ass because they were eating our sheep and stuff. But at the same time, like they were there before us, and we went there into that thing. We just gave them meals on legs, basically. Well, why would you chase down a kangaroo and there's a perfectly good little lamb laying there under the sun? Like, yeah, like I said, they're still fairly pure. There's been a lot of research and DNA testing and stuff, like clipping the ears. I was talking about wild dogs. That's all done and sent down, and they're still 90% pure or something. I've sort of fallen out of the loop a little bit now, but I think you still have to do respect them, otherwise you'll never catch them. If you just think, oh, stupid dog, I'll catch you. Chance, no chance in hell. So, and it was just a nice way to have Gabe explain what they do and why he does it, because I had a few people, like especially when we did the online launch for Wild Dogs last year, the author I had with us, Alan Baxter, a horror writer from over east, he's very clever, very good at what he does, but he'd read Wild Dogs because we had the same agent, and I asked him to online launch with us. He said, "Oh, so there's Michael, were you aware there's rules in writing about what you shouldn't do?" I said, "Yeah, I am now." Not at the time. He said, "Yeah, because one of the rules is you don't kill the dog. Right? That's a fairly common rule. Like if you put a dog in a story, unless you really want to upset your readers, do not kill him. Right?" I did not know that when I wrote Ridgeview Station.
Yeah.
And he said, "So what you've gone and done is not only have you got an action hero who is, let's say, in his mid-60s with a dicky hip, borderline alcoholic, he also kills dogs for a bloody living. What were you thinking?" I went, "Well, I never, until you said that, I didn't actually think about that." I said, "Well, you don't actually see him do that too much in the book, and I think there's one scene where he comes across a dead dog in the trap, and that gives me. I only showed all that just to show how meticulous he was, so that later on when he was setting his traps for the people, it made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was talking about this with Sarah on Conversations yesterday, that there's a few things in there that I could leave out and make the book a lot nicer, but then it loses its authenticity, and yeah, they're in there just because that's how it is, not for shock effect or anything like that. I mean, I could make Gabe swear a hell of a lot more if I wanted to shock people, but you got to draw a line somewhere. I don't think I've used any C-bombs yet. I'm probably going to use a couple in the next book, but that's purely because there's going to be scenes in a kitchen, and if you've ever worked in a kitchen, yeah, my honest mouth, potty mouth, like these. Some of those chefs up there, especially the little Asian ones, that make shearers blush. I mean, I swear, my God, the things I heard coming out of their mouth was, bloody hell.
So are there any final questions for Michael?
That's a good question. Like the practical common sense me says it's a load of shit, but I can walk across a pipeline. I can find pipelines in the dirt with nothing but an L-shaped piece of wire. I don't know how it works, but if I just hold it loosely, close my eyes, and keep walking, it will swing around. Now, whether that's yeah, because I mean, we had water divine for us too on a couple of occasions for a few different blokes, and miles out, and it cost us like 12 grand in drillers fees, and that's where that little, it's no sign of codger to give an explanation. Oh no, there's definitely water here, and then he buggers off back home. You get the contractors out. There's water here, mate. Nothing. Yeah, yeah. So like I'm a little bit. I think enough people have done it. You can't really say it's just dumb luck, but I've never seen anything scientific to explain how it works. Like I'm sure it's something to do. Like people, I've heard stories about people divining everything from pregnancies to the sex of the baby. Well, that's just a 50-50 guess, isn't it? I mean, it is interesting. But I have found pipes, and I don't know whether it's subconsciously because I know roughly there's a pipe here, so my hand just sort of goes. Meh. And if you dig enough, you will find a pipe. But yeah, it's weird. Definitely weird. Yeah, yeah, I think stuff like that too, for sure. Like there's valleys, so there's going to be an underwater stream there somewhere. It's just the lay of the land and where. Like the guy who drilled one of our holes, he said, "Look, as the fella said, the guy diviner said, look, the water will be 30 meters down." The driller came out, he said, "Look, mate, if there's water 30 meters down, you can have this for free, but we'll keep drilling because you're on top of a basin. If you go down far enough, you're going to hit water." So it's like a safe bet.
Yeah.
Because they were thinking about it too much. Yeah. That would make sense. Like if I see the pipe, the thing will swing as I walk over it. But again, that's probably just my hand going a little bit. Like, yeah, but then there's 4 of us, so me, my ex-wife, and her parents, we all had a go, and me and Helen could do it, and the other 2 couldn't. And me and Helen are one of those people that always get shocks off cars and things, so we always get static shocks, whereas the other 2 don't. So, you can draw as many conclusions as you want, and I don't know how it works. Yeah, just accept that it's, make your own mind up. If it only really becomes a problem if you're the one paying for the drilling.
Yeah, that's right. Unless you're the one that's done the consulting and you're like, yep, it's there, mate.
Yeah. I know one of the guys we use for drilling, he said, look, I can divine, but I don't, because imagine a diviner who owns a drilling company coming up with a dry hole. He said, no, so I don't do it.
Yeah. Well, so much for chatting to us this evening. So we know that so you're working on the next one with Gabe. That's going to be fantastic to see him in this situation. I'm really enjoying the evolution of Gabe and where characters go.
It's a nice surprise because it wasn't planned. That's why we don't see much of his past aside from Valerie in Wild Dogs, because he wasn't going to be hanging around. But then, I don't know, hopefully, like I say, we're approaching Penguin shortly just to see how they're thinking, because I haven't actually heard how it's been going sales-wise. I haven't heard bad things, so that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Bye too. So and I haven't really gotten in touch with the publisher because I didn't want I didn't want to have that conversation with her about what's next until I'd spoken to my agent. And so we'll see what happens.
You've got a plan for a 4th in your mind as well.
When I say plan, it's essentially, it'll be about Gabe. It's called No Sign. Someone's gone missing, probably Courtney's dad.
Courtney. So Courtney back.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
see what they say. I would like to get the gang back together.
Yeah, I think that's I like the idea.
I would like to get the band back together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And I think by then the 4th book, that would just be a really nice thing if Courtney's old man goes missing prospecting, which happens all the time. How many times do you see the old prospector's gone missing out the back of Kew or wherever? So whether someone's knocking them off to pinch their gold or trying to claim hoppers and all that sort of thing, and I don't know, and that was essentially my synopsis. Someone's going to go missing, Gabe's going to go looking for him, something dodgy's happening. Stuff happens. give me a 2-book deal. Thanks. So we went with both options because they might go, oh, that FIFO one sounds a bit meh, but I like the idea of this one, so let's do that. So otherwise, I was hoping to have a full manuscript ready by the time this came out, but because I had no deadline, it didn't happen. If we had a deadline, we would have had the whole thing written and edited. But we don't have a deadline, so it didn't happen. But we thought we'd give them both options just so that I don't spend all this time on one manuscript with a rough idea of the next one. They go, oh, we don't want that one, but we really like the idea of this other one that you haven't done anything on. Oh, let's just find out what one they want first, and I'll do that one. It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens.
I look forward to it.
And if it doesn't happen, we'll fall back to Plan B, which I haven't got yet, but we'll come up with something.
Well, you've got that drawer full of manuscripts
you
can pull from too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, quite a few people have come into Paperbark and said that when reading it, they feel like it's got a.
It would be good, wouldn't it?
That would be very good. Be very good.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Oh, fingers crossed, everybody. Yeah.
Yes. There's been interest, so it's a sealed, but no, there's been interest, so we are in the process of turning that interest into something else. Hopefully.
That's awesome.
With any luck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it would help. More sales.
Yeah. Well, no final questions? One more, yes.
Oh, yes, that'll happen at the end.
Michael's going to hang around and...
I've got a special stamp now so everyone gets the same signature.
Yeah. No, so, Michael will be hanging around so you can bring your books up here and Michael will sign them. Absolutely.
I got professional. I've got 2 pens.
Lovely.
In case runs out halfway. I'll tell you what, the left hand look about as good as the right hand. My handwriting is shocking. I go to these events and all these lovely lady authors sitting either side of me with their beautiful cursive, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Signed Fiona, signed Rachel, signed. There's me, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Michael Trant, everyone.
Thank you.
And it was it was really, really enjoyable. Thank you for taking us on the with Gabe. It's great. Right. Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much for coming, everybody. Thank you, Billy. So Michael will sign books, and next month we've got Pip Williams will be joining us via Zoom from the East Coast. That's the next one, yeah. So she wrote Dictionary of Lost Words,
I've been dreading the day where I meet
the bookbinder of
someone.